Welcome, old viewers and new viewers, to another episode of The Dancing Negotiator with Dr. Cheryl Okoli, DHA. This is the show where you learn all about conflict resolution in the workplace: the what, the why, the when, the where, the who, the how. Evidence-based frameworks are introduced, either of mine, as an example, my original 5 A's of conflict resolution mnemonic. And believe it or not, I actually have additional mnemonics for conflict resolution, which I will introduce sometime later on this year. But if you're interested in learning more about those, you can find my book on the various platforms on Amazon. But I also introduce frameworks of experts in the fields, or frameworks related to the theme of the month. I like to reserve the third Friday of each month for story time. Story time is an analysis of a movie, a drama, an event. What went wrong as it pertained to conflict and what could have been done better? Now, this movie or drama of choice is aligned with the theme of the month. And last but not least, I reserve the last Friday of each month to have a guest or a panel of guests who are either experts in the field or have something salient as it pertains to the theme of the month. Welcome back to another episode of the month of September. And the theme of this month is all about the administrative evidence-based practices. If you did not get a chance to watch the previous episode, I highly recommend you do, because I provided a brief introduction of what they are. So they are 5, basically, you could say, performance measures for an organization. There are 5 of them: leadership, workforce development, which we talked about last time. And today we'll be talking about the third one, partnerships. Okay, so in not much ado, what are partnerships? You might have different images comes to your mind, but the definition I'll use today is basically think of them as strategic alliances with other stakeholders or organizations or intersectoral collaboration. Now, these stakeholders could be internal or external to your organization. Now, why? So when we talk about partnerships, you really need to assess and think about and plan about the what, the why, the when, the where, the who, and how. So we've talked about, I've given you a description of what they are. Now, why? So usually organizations come together to form partnerships because of shared values. They want to leverage human and physical resources. They want to leverage leadership. They want to forge efforts to break down silos that can be detrimental for the organization productivity. And last but not least, usually in the healthcare settings, it's usually to enhance quality of care delivered to their clients, patients, and of course, to be cost effective in the care provided. Another reason why partnerships are forged is because you want to enhance a competitive advantage. Now, the reason one would do this is if by yourself, either you as an individual organization, if you cannot reach the masses or effectively or efficiently, you forge partnerships to enhance that competitive advantage, to enhance capacity building for mutual gains, which could be intrinsic, extrinsic, tangible, or intangible. So now, when should you forge a partnership? I highly recommend that partnerships forging can happen at 2 phases of an organization, either before inception, before it opens for business, and secondly, when in operation, right? Because when open for business, you have some time to create that blueprint, if you will, to create the foundation and structure of your organization. However, when you open for business, I have clientele, whoever your clients or patients, whoever you call your client that you serve, you might begin to realize that there's some things that are lacking or could be augmented. And that's when you start thinking of the appropriate partner or vendor to come into agreement with. Now, where? When I look at partnerships, I like to describe it in 2 folds, 2 levels: at the macro level and at the micro level. At the macro level, that could be, again, like I said, maybe prior to opening for business, behind the scenes, if you will, organizations are partnering with, let's say, insurance organizations for life insurance, for living benefits. By living benefits, I mean like insurances that their employees or clientele can access while they are living. It's not only going to be available to their beneficiaries after their death. So that's innovative. also be at the macro level whereby, let's say, regulatory bodies partner with partners that have amenities of daily living that are crucial for their members. For example, if I were to ask you what amenities do you think you cannot live without, some might say housing, transportation in terms of cars, food, internet, and so forth. So with those responses, organizations can partner with, let's say, insurance companies for housing and car insurance, getting packages that can be combined during registration, let's say annual registration for regulatory professional bodies. Just as an example, telephone packages of their various vendor of choice. And then once we've talked about when, now the question becomes who as well, right? Now, when I say what, why, when, and where, and who, and how, there's no particular order, but this is just how I'm presenting it today, okay? So the who is a big part, because whoever you come into partnership with can make or break your organization. You really want to ensure that whoever you choose to approach to be a partner, that there's alignment as it pertains to your strategic direction. And by that, I mean your mission statement, vision, goals, objectives, and your values, okay? What about corporate social responsibility? What is their business ethical practices to the people they're serving, to their shareholders, to their stakeholders? What's the transparency when it comes to financial practices? You really want to make sure you have a good background about such organizations before you forge partnerships with them. Now, what are some characteristics of the who? Now, this who could be an individual. I think I mentioned that already. It could be an actual organization, but nevertheless, the same principle applies. There needs to be trust. Without trust, no relationship can be long-term, can be fostered long-term. What about integrity? Are they ethical? Are they dependable? Are they reliable? Let's say, for example, a healthcare organization needs to forge a partnership with an agency that provides staffing when there's a shortfall in an organization. So let's say there's sick time. And let's say a particular organization doesn't have as much employees as it would like. So it comes into partnerships with an organization that basically provides healthcare professionals to cover sick time, vacation, and so forth. Now, in part of your planning, where does this agency, where is it located? Is it an hour away? Is it 3 hours away? Even an hour away may not be conducive. Why? Let's say there were inclement weather, it's winter, roads are frozen. What happens when the employees cannot travel safely to come meet your needs? Now, is that wise to have an agency or partner that far away? I'll let you think about that. It may not be wise. So what are you doing in terms of your staffing pool to ensure that whatever agency you partner with, they're hopefully closer to you in proximity and they're responsive? Okay. Now, again, the who, you want to ensure there's a win-win. It's not just one party benefiting over the other party. You want to make sure there's a win-win in the give and the take. There's a balanced measure of that. So one doesn't feel they're being used by the other. You want to ensure there's no conflict of interest. When I talk about conflict of interest in terms of actual, perceived, or potential, take care of all of that before you sign any papers and forge partnerships. I know sometimes people forge partnerships with regards to emotional sentiments. When you're running a business, emotions need to be secondary to logical and strategic thinking. Emotions are helpful, but can make things cloudy, okay? We're talking about business here. You're talking about the lives, not just the people you're serving, but the employees that serve them as well, okay? Remove emotion if it's clouding your thinking, okay? Now, what about the how? So you've determined who is an ideal partner. Now, how do you make this legal? Well, usually have what's called an agreement or contract. Some people cringe when they hear the word contract because it conjures up all sorts of images in their minds. So, well, you could call it an agreement, but either way, your agreement, whatever shape and form, have it in writing. Let expectations be very clear in terms of the roles, the timelines of provision of the services, when people will be paid, how they'll be paid. Is there a refund policy? Do you have your policy and procedures? So sometimes it's not just a matter of just signing the last page. Sometimes you might want to initial and sign every page, depending on how this contract is drawn up. Is it electronic? Is it manual? Okay. At least initial every single page and put your signature, be it electronic, digital signature. Digital is different from electronic, or manual signature. Make sure you're clear that both parties are in agreement. You might want to see what each party's contractual agreement looks like and come up with one that's mutually acceptable to both of you. Now, with every partnership, it's very wise that you have evaluation processes. Now, some people might forge partners and say, I will evaluate it annually or every 3 years as we reassess our strategic plan. I beg to differ. I would recommend that you evaluate whatever partnership or ships that you have at least minimum twice a year. Why? Because, depending on the kind of services you're providing, be it in the goods industry or in the service industry, you might want to assess it more frequently than twice a year. Why? Because if things are not going well, it's better you find out sooner than later. Again, your return on investments. You can't afford to lose thousands or millions of dollars when an error could have been rectified sooner, okay? So the evaluation should be something of continuous quality improvement, continuously assessing the partnerships. Should they remain? Can they go? What pillar, and when I say pillar, when you look at the organization, so we're talking about administrative evidence-based practices. So partnerships in terms of your leadership, in terms of your vendors, your workforce. Okay, you want to look at each and every area of the practices, which we'll talk about some more later. So now, what are some call to action steps I'd like you to think about? I want you to take an inventory of the partnerships that you currently have. Are they achieving the purposes for which they were originally forged? If you feel that this is something too much for you to do, invite a consultant. Is it time to give the gift of goodbye in a peaceful but firm manner? If someone is not paying you when they should pay you, although your contractual agreement specifies a time frame, follow up with them numerous times. But there comes a point in time when, yes, sometimes legal action needs to be taken, but give them the benefit of the doubt. Go through the 5 A's of conflict resolution strategies, which I provided. If you go to my earlier episodes, especially the months of, I believe, November and December of last year, go through them. It will give you some tools on how to assess if you need to continue partnerships or let go. Are you still feeling stuck? If you're still feeling stuck, please contact me. Visit my website for my consultation services. So assessing your partnerships, forging your partnerships falls under the strategic management domain of the consultation services that I provide. So I mentioned that you could visit Amazon to get a book of mine. So my book is available on Amazon platforms, Canada, United States, UK, morebooks.shop, okay? Feel free to purchase that book, the 2021 version of my book, okay? But before you go here, I see that we're almost out of time because I am starting with providing context from anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour, and today I'm aiming for just about 15 minutes. I want you to have a close look at something. Sometimes you might think, you know what, if I don't bow to the needs of my potential partner, I'll get a poor review. I will not be, given referrals. Well, value yourself. I want you to remember this always, that you are needed in this world to be a solution. Be the best that you can, and do not rob the world of a precious gem, okay? So do what you need to do, evaluate those processes. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't undervalue yourself. See you next time, same place, for another episode of the Dancing Negotiator every Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Goodbye and have a splendid day.